What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the California Underground Podcast. I am your host, Phil, and as always, is with me is my trusty co-host, the best and fastest researcher in the West. And tonight we have a very special guest, the Assemblyman from the Joe Patterson, or as he goes on Twitter, I kind of like Patter Dude as a handle for a politician. We're going to talk a bit, but Joe, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, great. Living the dream, best day of my life. Uh-oh.
I know.
Do we lose me already?
Yes, just for a second.
Okay, where did you guys lose me?
Just an introduction.
Oh, introduction.
Yeah, I just said it was the best day of my life.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. All right. So anyway, starting from the top, this is the thing about live shows. Sometimes this happens. Not a big deal. As always, I'm your host, Phil, trusty co-host, special guest tonight, Joe Patterson, or as he goes on Twitter, Patter Dude, and we're going to talk about Twitter in a little bit. Joe, how are you doing tonight?
Good. Best, like I said, best day of my life. Just my bunch of my kids are out at sports, and any of them at any moment could bust in the room. Fully clothed, not clothed. I don't really know.
How old are they?
I've got a 10-year-old, 8-year-old, 5-year-old, and 2-year-old. The 5 and 2-year-old are sleeping, but the 10 and 8-year-old are, still up.
All right.
That's fine. I have a little dog. Whatever passes by on a bicycle or rollerblades or a skateboard or whatever. So there's a chance she might kind of chime in. So who doesn't know who you are? Why don't you tell people a little bit about your politics and all that?
Yeah, I'm the 5th Assembly District used to be largely represented by Kevin Kiley, who's now in Congress. And before this, I was on the Rockland City Council, which is in Placer County. And I didn't really intend to run for this seat, but it was always the very last maps. Actually, all of the maps by the Redistricting Commission had me in the same seat as Josh Hoover. And so I was never really thinking about running or anything. And then all of a sudden, the very last map separated out Folsom from the rest of the district. And, so then just one thing led to another, and here I am. But had a small business, and I was the mayor of Rockland, and used to work in the legislature, actually. Actually, I used to work for a legislator representing Orange County at the time. So kind of understand the building a little bit, but I didn't really ever intend to get involved in elective office. And then something in my town, I'd only lived in Rockland for 2 years, and things were kind of shady out here, in my opinion. And so I did kind of this opposition to something as just an ordinary Joe. And then the next year I ended up running for city council, and here I am. One thing led to another. So, it's been crazy. 8 months in the legislature, 9 months, and that place is crazy. It's crazy.
So, local, and then making your way up to Sacramento. Biggest difference between local and Sacramento?
How much time do we have? Well, on the local level, people are normal. My city council members, it's like a volunteer job. And you run in the competitive nature, you want to beat the other people. But really you're trying to make your community better, at least in a place like Rockland. I can't say about, in places like Orange County and LA, everything's big and political and stuff like that. But I mean, in a suburb like Rockland, it's really just because you don't want your kids walking through homeless people or something like that, which is why you run. And but on the state level, it's insane. I mean, I don't have enough time to talk. We don't have enough time to talk about this. But the one thing that is the craziest about when I was an intern and then a staffer in the legislature, there were 32 Republicans and 48 Democrats. Now there are 18 Republicans and 62 Democrats, which is fine, whatever. I mean, I wish we had a lot more Republicans. But the thing that is very interesting, and I tell people this all the time, I mean, even when I'm talking to groups of Republicans, Democrats, any other party, is that in the Capitol is not the same kind of Democrat that you see, out in the wild. My mom is a Democrat. My mom was a Democrat, and I live in California. Most people I know are Democrats, outside of Placer County. That is not what we see in the Capitol. It is not the same thing. It is the most extreme you could possibly get. And I'm not characterizing any individual legislator. I'm just saying, as a collection of people, it is so extreme. And on the city level, it is not that way. I mean, we're really here to, try to make your community better.
I always wonder that, and I feel like I've asked several people who work in Sacramento, several assembly members who've come on, sort of how like you're saying, like out in the wild, you can have coffee with them, you can talk to them. It seems rational. You can all kind of commiserate that the homeless has got control, crime is out of control. But then you look at like the Twitter feeds of some people in Sacramento, and you just wonder, like, what planet are you on? A couple that come to mind, Alex Lee in his mom's basement is definitely one of them, who I just look at and go, I don't know if you live in reality, man. But there's a couple others. Scott Wiener's one of our favorite legislators up there in Sacramento. But bad that it just seems like they're a caricature of Democrats and like Bay Area Democrats.
It's interesting. On a one-on-one basis, I get along quite well with a lot of these Democrats. I mean, I'll just give you an example. Like Alex Lee, I probably don't agree with him on the majority. I mean, we are like two completely different people. Like I'm a 41-year-old married man with 4 kids living in the suburbs, right? He lives in the Bay Area. And just his policies are way different. On a one-on-one basis, I mean, he's not a bad guy. We have conversations, things are kind of normal. And then it's just interesting. And I when I think about the Capitol, he is not the person that comes to mind of how crazy things are in Sacramento. He's just not one of those. I'm not saying that I agree with stuff that he does. I'm just saying he's not in the, this is what crazy is going on here. He has a lot of different ideas. I think he kind of is more along the socialist route of like, for example, he supports social housing. I don't support social housing, but if you actually talk to him about it, if you have a conversation with him about, like, how do you support the government coming in and building housing? He's like, well, we do it for roads. Why wouldn't we do it for housing? And then you say, okay, I see what you're saying. I see where you're coming from. I don't philosophically agree with that, but I kind of get where he's coming from. So we have in the Capitol, we have something called a members lounge. When you go chat with these people, anybody, Republicans, Democrats, and you go out there and you're like, oh yeah, what's going on? Let's have our Diet Coke, whatever. And then you get out on the assembly floor and you're like, whoa, that was not the person I was just talking to. That is not. And they probably say that about me too, honestly. That's kind of the environment that we're in. And I do think there is a lot of virtue signaling just generally. Like you said, you go on Twitter feeds. I probably do it too. But you go on Twitter feeds and you're like, oh, this person's at this protest. This person's doing this or whatever. Well, what are you actually doing to, move the state along or solve some of these problems we actually have? I really don't care personally if, person's at a protest or a picket line or something like that. It might be important to their constituencies, but I actually am much more concerned about crime and homelessness and water storage and all these other things. So it's weird we don't really talk about those things. I try to, but it's just weird that those never really come up,
I think those are our favorite subjects.
Well, probably any one of those subjects we can talk all day long on. I mean, but we don't talk about them in the legislature. I mean, we have 2,000 bills, over 2,000 bills. And I mean, some of them touch on homelessness. Some of them touch on this. I mean, what are we doing to bring down utility rates or something like that? I mean, it's not even, it's like we don't even talk about it. It's so crazy. And we don't get to set the agenda as Republicans. We don't get to set that agenda. I mean, we could push it, say we need to do this. We'll bring hostile amendments on the floor, but, it gets shut down.
I think it's going back to what Alex Lee said. It's kind of scary if he thinks, well, government builds to build housing. Has he seen California roads? So I can only imagine what California government housing would look like. But in terms of those like topics that I think need to be discussed, what are some of the what been working on in the legislature right now?
Well, the thing that I've had success with is legislation around fentanyl. And I've had some success, and not surprising to you, because I know you follow this, I haven't had some success on one of the components, but I'm the only Republican to get something out of the Assembly Public Safety Committee that deals with fentanyl. So we are making some progress in that. I just got a bill signed by the governor on that. I had a neighbor die of fentanyl poisoning when I was on the Rockland City Council, and so I didn't know anything about it until then. So I have 4 pieces of legislation, but the one piece we can't get out of the legislature, which you guys know this already, but has to do with accountability. I mean, the only bill to get out of the Assembly Public Safety Committee regarding fentanyls, you have to have enough doses to kill 500,000 people. 500,000 people, you have to have a kilo, So it's just so obscene, that place. And but so I had a piece to basically allow people to be charged with murder if they know the risks. It's Alexander's Law. I may have heard about that, but if you know the risks, you continue to sell the drug anyways and traffic it. And it's actually only actually under current law, you can be charged with murder, but it's if you've been warned, you get arrested. My bill would say you have to warn them that they can be charged with murder after they're arrested. And if they do it a second time, then they can be charged with murder. So, or make it clear they can be charged with murder. So that one died in committee on a party line vote. I mean, it was totally unsurprising, but we're going to keep pushing it. So I've been working a lot on fentanyl. We have all sorts of issues on early release of inmates, sexually violent predators, just public safety issues in general. I mean, human trafficking, gun violence. Gun violence is another one. Anybody who says Republicans don't care about gun violence don't follow what's happening in the legislature. We actually propose bills all the time, and they die in committee because it's not whatever the Democrats want to do. But I'll give you an example. The very right-wing publication called the San Francisco Chronicle. You all know that about a very right-wing publication.
Very right, yeah.
Yes, exactly. I had a piece of legislation up that would make domestic violence, felony domestic violence, a violent felony. That sounds weird, but right now, felony domestic violence is eligible for early release. But if it was actually a violent felony, it would not be eligible for early release and would actually be a strikeable offense. These are the worst kinds of domestic violence. This is punching a woman in the face nonstop, dragging her by her hair, serious injuries outside of gunshot wounds. Gunshot wounds are violent felonies. But so I wanted to make felony domestic violence a violent felony. So the San Francisco Chronicle writes a piece saying, hey, Democrats should support this piece of legislation because 2/3 of all mass shooters have a background in domestic violence. And so the Chronicle was the one that picked up, and they said, hey, look, this is a way to stop mass shootings in California. In fact, we had a case in Sacramento where a guy was released early from prison after just beating up his partner really bad, dragging her out by her hair, punching her in the face, in the car. Really bad situation. So he got sentenced to 10 years, got out in 5 years, and within 3 months went and killed 6 people in a mass shooting in downtown Sacramento. And so I use this as an example of, hey, if this guy was in prison, these 6 people would still be alive. And they said, well, how do you know he wouldn't have done it 10 years? Well, I don't know. I mean, I can't predict the future, but I know these 6 people would still be alive right now. And so even the San Francisco Chronicle was like, this is a reasonable bill. But Democrats still killed it. So I would say public safety, fentanyl. We also have some parental rights legislation. A lot of things like that. I'm pretty big into parental rights is a major issue for me.
Do you know off the top of your head, California fentanyl death rates per day, per month, per year, anything?
It's 110 people a week.
Okay.
But I will tell you this, more people die of fentanyl than gun violence. I mean, they don't want to talk about the actual issues in California. They don't want to talk about that because it's not politically expedient. I mean, everybody thinks, and look, gun violence is a serious issue, but they only want their solutions, by the way, which is take guns away from people. By the way, CCW holders don't commit murders in California. It just doesn't happen. But they want to make it more difficult for people to have they only want their solutions. They don't want these other solutions. But more people are dying of fentanyl than are dying of gun violence.
I hate to keep going back to COVID, but I think about all those commercials about how you killed grandma because you left your house. You weren't essential. We're going to crack down on stay in your home and don't go out in curfews, but we're not going to do anything about fentanyl that is killing children.
It's, I have 4 kids, and to see fentanyl started spiking during the shutdowns, and it's not going down, by the way, but during the pandemic and during school shutdowns and all these issues, mental health issues were spiking, and it all started around then. It really started spiking, and it's a sad thing to say, but again, they don't want to talk about that because then they have to actually accept, hey, maybe we did the wrong thing, right?
Right. I also have 4 kids.
Is fentanyl an issue
It's a lot.
That you might have to work with the federal government on because of if it's coming across the border?
Look, a lot of the issues I'm getting out of the legislature, I think, will help prevent people from dying of fentanyl because they know about it or there's treatment out there. But at the end of the day, if this stuff doesn't stop, I mean, the DEA, Joe Biden's DEA says this stuff is coming in from Mexico, from China, right? So it's not like it's some, vast right-wing conspiracy that we say that. Like they even say that. So yeah, we have to secure the border. But every day, I was just on Twitter yesterday and I saw some congressman from Texas talk about how cruel Texas's border policy is. It's like, man, maybe they don't want lethal drugs coming into our country, so it's just crazy. I mean, yes, he has to do something about the border. I mean, the border is insane. It's crazy.
Why do you, I mean, bigger philosophical question, but why do you think Democrats just don't want to tackle these bills and these issues? I mean, you have the San Francisco Chronicle, you said, very right wing, obviously pro Trump, MAGA supporting newspaper, if anybody knows it out there. Why Democrats not even taking cues from the San Francisco Chronicle? I mean, like, maybe we should start supporting this stuff, and maybe our voters would like us to get a little bit tougher on crime. Videos do I have to see on Instagram of being robbed, or what was the new one in Glendale that just got robbed, a very fancy place? But it's just constant videos of like crime and public safety issues. They're just not interested in tackling it.
There are philosophical differences on prison. I mean, California just changed there's legislation right now to change the definition of prison from being, place where you pay for your crimes to a place where you are rehabilitated. They're literally changing the definition of what a prison is supposed to do. And I get that. Look, 90 some odd % of people will eventually get out of prison. So you have to you have to rehabilitate people that are in prison. But just yesterday, this just happened yesterday, a guy who raped a 14-year-old girl in my county, a 14-year-old girl, and before that had molested another child. So 2 disgusting convictions, which people can argue you should get more than maybe a lengthy prison sentence for doing stuff like that. he got sentenced to I think 32 years, and so now he's up after 16 years. This guy's eligible for early release, you know. And so how is it? So I just don't think the public understands. This gets to Proposition 57, by the way. I just don't think the public understands, and it's not their fault, but I mean, it's the way things are characterized that we're just trying to put people in prison. You are damn right. I have no problem with a guy who raped and molested children spending the rest of their lives in prison forever. That is absolutely, they should not be eligible for release. But we're not talking about locking up somebody who, you know, is using drugs or whatever and really needs help. We're talking about, can we just keep people in prison who are, you know, like, I don't know, child rapists? It seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I have zero tolerance for that. And I guess, especially as parents, I'm sure we both, you know, it's a little more, you look at your own child and you're like thinking that could be my kid. And I don't want to get anyone in trouble here, so I won't say what I would do if that person was released from prison. But that's, you know, it's just, if someone hurt my kid, no.
Yeah, well, you don't have to say what you would do if somebody hurt your kid like that, but you can say that maybe we should expand the list of capital punishment crimes for people that rape and molest children.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife has a pretty radical punishment, but we so
after.
Got it. Yeah. So, you talked about public safety, and one of the biggest controversies involving minors was SB 14, which caused a national hubbub over what happened. And we had asked Josh Hoover for his kind of take on it, but why don't you give us your take on what it was during that whole kind of fiasco? What was going on?
Sure. Well, that legislation that I was talking about on gun violence that the Chronicle, you know, that very extreme MAGA paper endorsed, it actually included making violent crimes for 3 different types of crimes. One was all sexual assaults, one was domestic violence, and the third one was human trafficking, child human trafficking for the purposes of sex. And so they already killed that bill. But I didn't make a lot of noise about the human trafficking component because Shannon Grove has really been a leader in this, and I didn't want to sort of take her spotlight, so I didn't work that angle at the time. But this was actually the second time that Democrats killed it initially, and it took Governor Newsom. I mean, Governor Newsom, I disagree with all the time, but he's no dummy. He's no dummy. He knows the public thinks it's absolutely ridiculous that human trafficking of children is not a serious crime. So, and if it wasn't for, you know, the pressure that Republicans were putting on, because papers started saying, like, what is this all about? You know, the media, what is this all about? Like you said, national media. How is this not a serious felony? You could traffic children for devious purposes and get out in half your sentence, and because of Proposition 57. So, but you know what's crazy about SB 14 also is it's not the first time you do it. It's not the first time. So it's actually the second time you've done it. So this is a person with a consistent track record of trafficking children, and Democrats couldn't even go for that. So it was only because of public pressure. And I think obviously that caused the governor to do it. I mean, the governor reads the paper. The governor is very influenced by what shows up in the media. And there have been other issues that I've worked on where it's been a similar type of response. But you know, when the governor comes out, who, you know, obviously is not a Republican, and he says, yeah, I think this should, you know, be a problem. But this is how extreme this place is. I go to speak at events on a daily basis, and I don't know if these people are Republicans or Democrats, and I say, hey guys, this is how extreme Sacramento is. I use this as the example to show how extreme Sacramento is. they could not even classify this as a serious felony. And when I say that, I'm actually surprised at people in the audience who don't know that, who do not know that. So I think it's up to us, up to you, up to us to educate people that this is how extreme Sacramento is. And I think that's the only way Republicans pick up seats, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
That's baffling
Yeah,
to me. I mean, sorry.
No, go ahead, Camille.
I just know that the second offense, it should be the first offense, but they were bothered by the second. What did they want? Third, fourth, fifth? Nothing, obviously.
The chair of that committee just philosophically does not believe in incarceration. He does not believe in it. I mean, I think.
Who is this?
You can name him. No, it's I don't really like to use their names, but it's Reggie Jones Sawyer. And, you know, he says it in committee. He says it in the nicest way possible, but he has a different worldview. I think it's fine to look at, hey, look, he has a different worldview. He represents LA, and he's got a different worldview on, look, prisons used to be overcrowded, and people used to be sent to prisons for things that are, you know, you shouldn't go to prison for that long a period. I mean, look, I don't want a person going to prison for 20 years because they're selling pot. I'm not condoning selling pot. I'm just saying there's probably other things we can do than drop 70 grand a year incarcerating this person. So, so I get that perspective, and I've been to a lot of prisons. I went to prisons when there was overcrowding and people were sleeping in gyms and 3 high bunks. And so in a way, I get that perspective, but the solution isn't to just release people, and the solution isn't to just let, you know, these people who are trafficking children, just let them, you know, go free. It's crazy. It's just absolutely. I actually met. This is what makes me so mad. I was there. I went to the hearing, did the press conference thing. This lady comes up to me. She said, "Hey, I'm so and so. I'm actually a constituent of yours." And I was like, "Hey, you know, so nice to meet you." She was trafficked. Not in my district, but she lives in my district now. She's I don't know, she's maybe 30s or 40s or something, but she was trafficked. And so she showed up at the hearing to testify in support of this bill. A senator from LA County had tweeted, not about her, but said Shannon Grove and who else? Oh, Heath Flora, my colleague Heath Flora, are using human trafficking victims as pawns to push, you know, right-wing extreme stuff. I can't, that's a paraphrase. It's not exactly what it said, but how dare you tell me that this lady who I had just met, if you were to ask her, she said, "Oh no, I came down to the Capitol. This is really important to me. This is really important to me because this happened to me and these people need to spend a lot of time in prison." So how dare them even say that we're using victims as pawns? Give me a break. It's just so disgusting.
I mean, somebody from LA County probably should worry about what's going on at home anyway in that area, because it's just
right.
But I mean, I guess the philosophy lines up LA County, because LA County is an absolute war zone.
I was literally there a week ago, and I was sorry, I keep interrupting you. I was texting Phil as I'm driving into LA. I'm in Orange County. I was driving into LA, and I'm like, I cannot stand coming here. It's so bad.
Nothing against the people. I just can't stand LA. I'm down in San Diego, and San Diego and LA, we're just two completely. I feel like Orange County is like a close brethren to us. Like, we kind of get along in San Diego, and then we both look at LA and we're like, ugh, LA. Last week, how when you're driving up the 5, you know, county, when you go from like this big, beautiful, well-maintained highway with lots of lanes, and it's all nice, and then all of a sudden you cross in, and then it goes from like 5 lanes to 2 lanes, and it's just run down warehouses, and you go, "Oh, we're in LA County."
You know, it's funny you say that, because I actually went down to San Diego probably like 6 or 7 months ago or something. I was driving through, and it's, oh, Orange County, oh, LA, oh, San Diego. You know, it's just so clear. It's so obvious, the differences. It's crazy.
When I exited the freeway, I kid you not, like the 2 lanes, you know, to exit the middle line, there was a person sitting in a chair on the middle line of the freeway exit. And luckily there's traffic, and so people are slower anyway, but should it be a less trafficy moment and someone exits quickly, that man could be killed instantly. And this is LA, and that's not okay. That, like, I was so devastated. I almost cried. Like, I was just like, this is that. That's just one person of how many hundreds, thousands in LA that, like, they need help.
Mhm.
And I don't know. We're not doing anything for the homeless or mental health. I mean, I know there's some people are slowly chipping away here and there, but it's a big, big issue.
Yeah.
You had brought up a Twitter spat, and I tell people that you're a really good Twitter follower, or a good Twitter follow. You a couple days ago that I got a chuckle out of. If you don't mind me reading it, is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's already out there on the public anyway in Twitter, so, or X, whatever you want to call it, Xing, X, whatever you do. It's Sacramento Airport is building a, quote, stunning $140 million pedestrian walkway to go from concourse to terminal. At some point, how to use tax dollars appropriately. No one goes to airports to enjoy stunning walkways. In fact, people want to get out ASAP. And he retweeted under it, the existing but not open walkway. Enough. The reason I love that, and also you kind of typo, but that's fine. We read it the correct way. The reason I love that is because I think on Twitter you have such an honest voice, and it's kind of refreshing to hear a politician just speak honestly, like what's on your mind, not hold back, into it, make it funny, make it relatable. It's always been you on Twitter, and when you became Assemblyman, did you just decide I'm going to continue being honest and stuff like that? What's your kind of strategy with that voice on Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, Twitter is, I don't have enough capacity in my life to be, fake or think about every consequence of everything I say when I open my mouth. And before I ran for office, I was kind of like that anyways. I kind of said, people, I mean, honestly, I get it. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I mean, people want me to be more refined or not so offensive or whatever, but I mean, just stop. I think people want to hear. I think the reason why people like Donald Trump is, and not that I'm trying to be like Donald Trump. I'm just saying the reason why he appeals to people is because he says whatever he wants to come out of his mouth, he's going to say it. Right now, look, I don't. Sometimes I think he makes some missteps there, but I make missteps too. And I think that's fine. That kind of like comes with the program, But I just think Twitter is an amazing tool. I get quoted all the time in papers and used in news sources because I think it's an amazing tool. Look, my constituents may or may not. I know the Placer County Democratic Party just probably screenshots every tweet I do and just waiting for something someday. But I think it's an amazing tool to communicate with the public about, especially the press and the Capitol community, about what you're thinking. And it has gotten me some help. I'm telling you, every lobbyist or every legislator I talk to talks about Twitter. And there was actually a hearing probably about 6 months ago that I thought was a complete fraud. I mean, it was a joint committee and it didn't have any perspectives on the public safety side of things. And so I just started kind of tweeting crazy about it. Like, this is so disgusting. I can't believe, I'm not even going to show up tomorrow. And the chair of the committee actually called me and he said, hey, man, I'm sorry. This is kind of what's going on. I will call so-and-so to be there. And so they did, they actually called whoever to be there. So I have to be careful in a way because I do know that people are watching it. And so I don't want to be overly cavalier. But but there are some things, and I'm gonna give you an example of something that's coming up. Republican women staff members make fractionally what Democratic staff members make. Males. So if you're so Democrats like to tell you equity, equity, equity. Well, you're paying your staff a lot more, and I can't wait till these numbers come out. I'm waiting for I know when they're going to come out, but so I tweeted something about that. I tweeted about how this Republican women make less than their male Democratic counterparts. And I got a call from somebody. I won't say who, but I got a call from somebody disappointed that I had tweeted that out there. Like, hey, can we have a meeting about this? It's like, no, how about fix the problem? How about fix it? So I'm sorry that it offends you, but it is what it is,
Well, I think it's just very, and I think when it comes to California Republicans, it almost is a good idea to just kind of and be brash, because playing the same like game as everyone expects you to have the really well manicured talking points and all that stuff that just kind of like washes over people. It hasn't worked, and I think the California Republican Party is more of a minority party and losing people that, well, something's not working here. We got to try something. I think it's just very refreshing to see someone just have an honest voice that you can say, this is a real person. And I actually, so I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that a lot. I will say, I did think about, when I was I actually have not talked about this, but it's just between us. So I think we're good. But I always wondered when I was on the campaign, like some crazy picture from college is going to come out or something, and then I started thinking, like, what's the worst? I mean, me having a drink at a bar or something. I mean, good Lord, if somebody came to me like, oh my gosh, I got this picture of you, you're drinking, whiskey at a bar or something. I'd be like, okay, guys, sorry, I went to college, and yeah, I'm not a perfect guy. I had some drinks in college, like 99.9% of people, but now I'm a grown adult with 4 kids and a wife, and I got a job. And you don't want to vote for me because I did what everybody else did. I guess it is what it is. I don't think people are like that. I don't think society's gotten to the point to where they want to elect these pristine people with no I don't know. I didn't inhale. I mean, how much pain did Bill Clinton go through to tell people he didn't inhale?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, good Lord, like just stop it already.
Yeah. Shed the pretenses.
Hey, that's not the only thing he didn't do, though.
True. That's a whole different conversation, not related to California. So we had James Gallagher on last week, and we were talking about how California Republicans in Sacramento now are doing the argument and coming out with your own policies and solutions before, as opposed to being reactionary to a lot. Because when you are reactionary, you're not getting your word out. But if you create the policy and you put it out there, make the Democrats argue against it, like a lot of these public safety bills, there's a lot of chance for sort of electoral momentum. Is that something that you're working on, is trying to get that? I guess the California Promise was what you guys are calling it, getting those solutions out there.
I'm a big supporter of James. He actually went to high school with my wife. So, I didn't know him back in the day, but yeah, it was a small town where he went to high school, very small town. But so everybody kind of knew each other, but he's just genuinely a good person. But he's also very thoughtful in the sense of, we've been hearing forever, Republicans just can't be the party of no. So he became leader, got through elections, and then he put together our policy shop and everything and said, hey, let's go on the offense. the problem is a lot of these bills don't really see the light of day. I mean, if it's not sort of a popular topic on something, then people won't even know that we're proposing it. But I do have on a regular basis, I will have a Democrat in my county who doesn't like me say, well, what are you doing about homelessness? What are you doing? Well, actually, go to California Promise. We have an entire package of bills that we rolled out. But by the way, the chairs of your committees, your party, wouldn't even give us hearings on the bill. I mean, it's like a dictatorship over there. So they're kind of smart in a way where they just shut us down, so we can't even talk about the issue at all. And so our message doesn't get out there. But we do have solutions on homelessness, on gun violence, on crime, all of these things. And I think it's really smart that we keep doing that. And we shove it in the faces, by the way. We have press conferences on it. Fentanyl, we've had press conferences. Gun violence, we've had press conferences. All of these things we've done. And I think James has been doing a really good job. I mean, I actually used to work for a Republican leader from San Diego County, actually. I used to work for a Republican leader, and he was a great guy, great man, very honorable. So I have seen a lot of Republican leaders. I was a staff person when Kevin McCarthy was the Republican leader in the Assembly, actually. James Gallagher he's very special. I mean, he's got it. He knows what we need to do to pick up votes, but with the way redistricting works and all that stuff, I mean, it is hard out there. But I do think if I were to tell Californians something, it would be, in my view, California Republican Assembly, our assembly members, the people that we're recruiting, the people that we're putting out there, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you will definitely identify with the policies that we're putting forward more than you will identify with the Democratic policies. There might be some issues, like, for example, I'm pro-life. So maybe you don't agree with me on those issues, but I'm not in there. I'm actually not in there trying to ban abortion right now. I'm actually trying to get out there and say, hey, there are other options out there. With these pregnancy centers, there are other options out there. There are other services. So I'm trying to sort of push issues like that. So look, we might not agree on that issue, but I want to hear where you're at. Let's come with a solution. But Democrats are just like, hey, we're not going to solve homelessness. We're just going to throw 20 billion at it. Oh, retail theft, no big deal. Like, we don't want to send people to prison if they're doing that. That's no big deal. It's like, they're not solving the issues. It's so extreme.
And people can read more about California. Isn't there a website for the California Promise?
Yeah, I think it's called CaliforniaPromise.com or something. You could probably, I'm not exactly sure what it is. Yeah.
Camille, if you want to ask your question
I was going to say, on the, no, I cut you off. On the pro-life issue, like you said, you're not out there trying to ban abortion, but you're trying to acknowledge that there's these crisis centers that, there are options available. Meanwhile, we've literally got this California website where they're like, report the crisis pregnancy centers. They're liars. We need to get them shut down. And that's absolutely horrific to me. Meanwhile, whether you're pro-life or not, we're throwing so much taxpayer money at abortion because women feel like they don't have an option. It's like, let them know that there is an option. Let's, we could actually save some of the funds and allocate them elsewhere. If we're like allowing these women to go to these, not that we're not allowing them, but we're trying to shut them down. We're trying to make them unknown. We're trying to say abortion is the only answer here. And women believe that. They do. Like, I'm constantly surprised at even friends that I grew up with in California, who a lot of them voted Democrat for years, and then one day found out what abortion really was. And they were like, wait, I'm against that. And I'm like, how did you not know? And I don't mean that any condescendingly. It's just amazing to me what people don't understand and what they don't know. And so they go along with it because they think it's no big deal. And then one day they actually figure out, they learn what it is. And they're like, hold on. And I have had so many friends, females, who are like, wait, I don't believe in that. And they've switched parties over it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that I don't necessarily think I don't think the best way to protect the unborn is necessarily a law. You actually have to give people knowledge that there are other things out there that you can do. For example, I'm a huge, huge supporter of safe surrender. If you are unable to care for your child, we have to allow you to do what's best for the child. And so a fire department, you can safely surrender a child that you can't care for at a fire department. And look, that's not the best solution for everybody, but I think we have to acknowledge that we have to do what's best for the children. And then also on these pregnancy centers, the thing that drives me nuts, again, I'm not, I just think it's so hypocritical to be out there and say, uh, hey, abortion is it, abortion is it. There are other services out there. One of the pregnancy centers around my district, during the pandemic, Planned Parenthood was shut down. Shut down. So there were no ultrasounds when women would want to get an ultrasound to confirm a pregnancy or whatever. They saw something like 400 women that went into Planned Parenthood thinking about possible abortion. And like 3/4 of them ended up getting their ultrasounds at a pregnancy center and choosing to have the baby. And by the way, the pregnancy center will provide services. And I think we get so wrapped up because Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts is talking about what pregnancy centers do nationwide or whatever. In California, the one in my district and in other areas that I'm familiar with, they are licensed health clinics. They are not lying to you. It is unlawful for them to lie to you. If you go to their website right now, they say, we don't perform abortions. But yes, they philosophically believe that life is a good thing. Why would we try to stop that option? You're telling me Planned Parenthood is the only option out there for people? It's crazy. And by the way, now you're getting me going on something. Now you're getting me going. I sit on the privacy committee. I'm the vice chair of the privacy committee. And we mostly deal with tech issues, which are super important. But Planned Parenthood sponsors legislation all the time on privacy of people having abortions. And I'll tell you something, I'm philosophically supportive of that. If I don't think the government or anybody else should ever know that you should never force somebody to say whatever you did on a health basis or not. And that includes, by the way, is I don't support abortion, but if you have an abortion, like it is not the government's business and it's not my business. So they bring forward legislation. I remember there was this one that said that they would basically withhold the companies that knew that you were having an abortion because they track where you're going or whatever, that they couldn't disclose it to anybody else, like your law enforcement from other states. And the issue wasn't so much the bill. The problem was that it's already current law in California. They can't do that. It's already current law. But they sponsored this bill because it's a grift, because they want to be able to raise money and say, hey, we sponsored this bill. We're doing these things to help your privacy and all that kind of stuff. It's like it's already covered under the law. But it's a total grift. It's a scam. And I just, the lies that they tell. We had in health committee, they called pregnancy centers fake health clinics, fake doctors. And I just lost my mind on them. It's on video. It's on YouTube. It's on my YouTube where I'm saying, how dare you call licensed doctors fake and licensed medical clinics fake? And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of their lies. Thank you for listening to my rant.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm with you on it.
Yeah, it's I was always kind of the libertarian viewpoint of I was like, whatever, it's your choice, it's freedom, we can do whatever we want. But ever since I got married, I'm trying to have kids, and I think we've realized that this thing to have, it's not just a given. So when people are so callous about it, it gets me upset. It gets me kind of riled up as well. So that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to end on a little bit more of a lighter note. Your prediction for the Newsom DeSantis debate? Who do you think is going to come out on top?
Well, I do think somebody asked me one time, do you think Gavin Newsom has redeeming qualities? And by the way, I don't disagree with everything he does. I mean, I pay attention to what he does. And like, for example, thank God he came out behind that sex trafficking bill, right? I mean, so he does make the right decisions in some case, but what his big thing is he is no dummy. He is smart. He knows what's up. And so, but then again, Ron DeSantis, I mean, the guy, where'd he go? Like Harvard and Yale or something? I mean, and then he was in the military. By the way, he served our country. I think he was in the JAG Corps or something. I mean,
Yeah, he was
this
a Navy
guy's,
JAG.
yeah, he's no slouch. I mean, so I think if I were to guess, I think Gavin Newsom is really good at sort of numbers and facts and remembering them and being able to go off the cuff. I think if he can always focus on that, he's going to do really good. But I think Ron DeSantis is. I'm totally biased. By the way, I'm obviously biased, but I think he's going to be able to hold his own, and I think people are underestimating him. I think he's going to know facts. He's going to be able to say what California did wrong during the pandemic. You know, he's going to be able to talk about how their education system is doing better than ours out here. Unfortunately, I wish ours was doing better, but I don't know if there's going to be a winner out of it, but I am so excited. I will pay for it. Put it on pay-per-view and I will pay for it and give all the money to charity.
I can't believe they actually decided they're going to do it. I mean, Newsom's sort of been calling DeSantis out for a while now. So theory is and I don't want to get too far into presidential politics. Here's my theory of why they're doing this and why they both agreed. It's not said this is good for our national political debate for us to go at it. I think they both saw an opportunity. You're around politicians all the time. I'm sure you understand politicians are always looking for an angle. I think they both have an angle. I think Newsom obviously is floating himself as a national figure to run for president. If he does really well against DeSantis, everyone will be like, oh my gosh, why is this guy? He should be running over Joe Biden. And I think DeSantis needs to inject a little life in his campaign right now. I think he didn't have the big kind of heavyweight knockout that we were all expecting against Trump. So I think it's mostly just for their own political benefit. Although it's fun to see two big national figures go at it in a even though
So
they're not.
We're hoping to do a watch party here. Just a little plug.
Oh, great.
We'll be doing a watch party with
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just bring my water because I just drink water these days, right? So,
That's fine.
but yeah, I think Ron DeSantis. I mean, you can use it's higher risk for him. I think Gavin Newsom is. I mean, the uptick is obviously higher for him, but Gavin Newsom. If you talk to Democrats in other states, I mean, I don't know why, but I think they love the guy. They're kind of enamored. He does have that sort of presence around there. But I think if Ron DeSantis can put some life into the campaign, some more life, and show that he can hold his own against him, it's going to be really great, really great. So.
Once we saw the date, we were like, okay, we're definitely doing a live stream so anybody who's listening right now.
It was November 8th or 10th. Have they nailed that specifically down?
Not yet.
I don't know. Aren't they fighting over something now? I thought I saw something the other day that somebody's trying to change the terms or something like that.
Oh man, I'll be so disappointed if they back out because of some petty. They just can't get over it or resolve it. But we're coming up on the end of an hour. It's already flown by so fast. Did you want to leave with the listeners? And then also, where can people go find you? Obviously, Patter Dude on Twitter or X, whatever people are calling it now. I highly suggest you follow Joe on Twitter. It's entertaining. He's got great takes like we were talking about. Yeah, what are some final thoughts on where people can come find you and support you and and just know more about you.
Well, I think it's really important that Republicans look. I've been in sort of party politics for a while. I used to be a delegate for the party. Well, I still am technically, but we're gonna have our fights. We got to have our fights. Whether you're with Trump, whether you're with DeSantis, whether you like this issue, whether you're pro-choice, pro-life, whatever it is. But we have to come together because what's going on right now with the other side, the extremism in Sacramento is not coming from Republicans. It's not coming from Republicans. And so I think people got to stick with the program. And I think if you have an idea or you have issues that you think Republicans should be pushing, I mean, hit up your legislators, hit me up, tag me on Twitter, whatever, we can take those things, but do not abandon the party if you're disappointed with it. Stay with it. And I think that's really important. I'm actually going to be doing outreach to people who left the party in my district. Why not? Look, hey, this is what we're about. This is what we're trying to do. These are some of the things that we're seeing. So I think we got a lot of promise, a lot of things going on, but we can't allow California Democrats to have this super duper majority and just run us over, and all these ideas don't get the light of day.
Number one priority, chip away at the supermajority. That's got to be step one. As opposed to what people think. They always think like red in one election cycle. Not going to happen. But you can chip away. The supermajority makes a big difference. All right. So Patter Dude on Twitter. Where else people can find you or support you or just learn more about you?
Do we just lose him?
Patter Dude. Oh,
there we go.
You hear me? Oh,
yep,
okay. Sorry about that. Anyways, it's Patter Dude on Instagram too, but I would love the follows on Twitter, and let's keep kicking butt. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So Patter Dude on Twitter. Joe, thanks for coming on. As always, the door is open if you want to come back on. And we talked about before the show that there's plenty of things we could talk about. It could probably go on for hours and hours. So in that case, you want to come back and be on the show again. So the door is open whenever you want to come back on. And to anyone listening to the show, best way you can support this show, share it with some, throw it up on Twitter/X or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, make sure you like, share, subscribe, all of that stuff for this video. Comment afterwards for the algorithm. And we'll see you on the next one. Night, everybody.